Welcome to Pennsylvania Newsmakers, and thanks for joining us. Well, the scammers are after your money, but first, Josh Shapiro, currently the Attorney General of the state of Pennsylvania, but he is the Democratic candidate for governor, joins us, and we'll get to that after these words.
Welcome to the fast-paced and unrehearsed weekly discussion featuring the leaders who help shape your world. Join us as we address the issues that impact you each and every day. This is Pennsylvania Newsmakers. And now, here's your host, Terry Madonna.
All right, before we get to Attorney General Josh Shapiro, I want to point out that we invited his opponent, the Republican candidate for governor, State Senator Doug Mastriano. His campaign did not respond to our request, but I want to point out that he has an invitation to appear on Pennsylvania Newsmakers. All right, General Shapiro, let's talk a little bit. Let's start with, what do you think are two or three of the biggest issues? Campaigns are about issues, ultimately, when it comes down to it. What are two of the three top issues?
Look, investing in our schools to give all of our kids a shot, not just by throwing more money at our schools, but making them work again, teaching our kids VOTEC, making sure we got mental health counselors, things like that to ensure our kids get a great opportunity to succeed. Second is public safety. I want to hire 2,000 more police officers across Pennsylvania. People have a right to both be safe and feel safe. Third is growing our economy and making sure that communities, especially in rural Pennsylvania, who have been ignored for too long, get a shot. And finally, it's protecting people's rights and freedoms that are under attack, whether it's your right to vote or whether it's your right to make decisions over your own body. Those are the issues on people's minds as I travel across the Commonwealth, rural, urban, and suburban communities, Republican, Democrat, and Independent. These are the issues we talk about every day.
Yeah. Well, a good point on the economy. I mean, look at the inflation rate, which was just, reported, and the growth rate. A lot of people are working, but it's, as you travel across the state, you have to hear. Now, obviously, the price of gasoline has gone down, but it's still higher than it was a year ago. But the things that people need every single day, when they go to shop, when they buy food, when they pay the electric bill, the inflation rate and overall the economy, you must hear about that all the time throughout your campaign.
I do, and I talk about it every day. I find it interesting. My opponent has said his number one priority, those are his words, not mine, is to ban all abortion with no exceptions, not even to save the life of the woman or if she's been raped, God forbid. For me, my top priority is what I said before: education, public safety, and growing our economy. Part of growing our economy is cutting costs. I put forth a very specific plan several months ago, which we talk about every day. I'll go through the details, but look, it is clear that the Pennsylvania legislature and governor didn't create inflation, right? There's broader geopolitical issues that have led to it. But the truth is, we should have some skin in the game and make Pennsylvanians' lives a bit better. Here's my plan. Number one, we have got to reduce and eliminate those nuisance taxes which cost people money, like the cell phone tax. You pay 11%, Terry, just for having a cell phone. I'm going to eliminate that when I'm governor. I'm going to cut business taxes. It's going to allow our businesses to grow and invest more in workforce. I'm going to make sure that seniors who are on fixed incomes get to stay in their homes, even with rising costs, by doubling our property tax rent rebate. And then finally, give every single Pennsylvanian with a car, whether you own the car, leasing the car, whatever, a $250 immediate gas tax rebate, which is going to help offset the pain at the pump. These are the kinds of things Pennsylvanians need right now to reduce their costs, keep people in their homes. My opponent's priorities are all messed up, not focused on actually making people's lives better, but taking away their fundamental freedoms. I'm focused on cutting costs.
Yeah. We're going to run to a break. When we come back, I want to ask you a simple question. If elected, what would you do? What would the first steps that you would take? Obviously, you have to deal with the state legislature, but by executive action, you can do some things, as Governor Wolf just did, relative to people who have an abortion in the state and people who come in and deliver an abortion. We'll get to that and more after these words.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by the Pennsylvania Chamber of Business and Industry, the statewide voice of business, And by the Pennsylvania State Education Association, bringing the power of a great education to our schools, our students, and our communities. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Pennsylvania Highway Information Association, the go-to source to learn about transportation projects and issues. Please visit pahighwayinfo.org. And by the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association. Business in Pennsylvania is our business.
All right, my guest this segment is the Attorney General of the state of Pennsylvania, the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, I should say, Josh Shapiro. He's the Democratic candidate for governor. All right, look, you're elected governor, and that's a hypothetic now. It's the subjunctive if. I'm going to be careful about that. What would the first couple or three steps that you would take if elected?
Look, I think there's some policy things we want to do on day one, but there's also a change in attitude. We've got to make government work again. I'm going to set a tone on day one that Republicans and Democrats are going to be welcomed around the table again, and that everybody's going to have some responsibility to govern and to try and do things that are going to both bring the political parties and our Commonwealth back together, like making sure we got safe communities, investing in schools, cutting taxes, investing in the workforce to grow our economy. We're going to change the attitude. I'm a guy who knows how to work with Republicans and Democrats. Heck, we've had over 20 prominent Republican officials already endorse my candidacy. Republicans, independents recognizing the guy on the other side is just too extreme. And they're kind of, they're willing to take off that red jersey and put on the Pennsylvania jersey now because they understand what's at stake. I'll also be signing some executive orders on day one to try and change some of the tone of state government. For example, I think we need to do away with the requirement that you have to have a college degree to work for the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. I'll deal with that on day one. I think we need to make government far more efficient and effective. And so under my leadership, if you apply for a permit, a license, whatever it is from the Commonwealth, there will be a date certain that you get an answer. No more waiting around. Time is money. We can't afford to waste time and waste people's money. We're going to make sure that, as I've always done, we run an ethical, honest government. And we build a new senior team in cabinet that reflects all Pennsylvanians, no matter what you look like, where you come from, who you love, or who you pray to. We want to represent all Pennsylvanians. So you're going to see a government that looks like the people I was sworn to serve. Folks from rural, urban, suburban communities, people who come from different walks of life as me. I think a great example of that is Austin Davis, my lieutenant governor, my running mate. Austin would not only be the first Black lieutenant governor in the history of Pennsylvania, he just brings a totally different life experience than me to the table. We have got to surround ourselves with people who are going to help us run this government effectively. And so you'll see me introduce a new leadership team in Pennsylvania that can get the job done, bring people together and get the job done.
All right, one other issue that I want to talk about are voting rights. As you know, Act 77 passed in 2019, created mail-in balloting. When it passed the legislature, it was bipartisan, but now support for it has broken down by party, with Democrats, actually Democrats using mail-in voting more than Republicans. And there are reforms that the legislature could adopt that would keep mail-in balloting, but as you probably know, would make some changes to the way it's functioning. What's your view of mail-in balloting?
Well, mail-in balloting is convenient. It's been used by millions and millions of Pennsylvanians, Republicans and Democrats. Mail-in balloting was supported by more Republicans than Democrats in the legislature, including my opponent, who was for it until the former president told him he wasn't allowed to be for it. Look, I'll veto any bill that reaches my desk that does away with mail-in balloting. But I'm also prepared to work with Republicans in good faith to strengthen our election laws. I think there's a deeper issue here when it comes to voting and democracy. I mean, understand, my opponent was at the Capitol on January 6, 2021. He was part of the mob that stormed up to the Capitol. The reason why they were there that day, Terry, is because they were trying to stop your vote and the vote of millions of Pennsylvanians from being counted. That's the final step in the process to count the votes and formalize the election. He tried to stop it then, and he wants to try and stop your vote from counting in the future. He has already said he would use his power as governor, which he would have, to, quote, decertify voting machines in Pennsylvania. He has said, as my wife would say, the inside part outside. He has said he wants to stop your vote from being counted in the future so he gets to pick the winner. Look, Terry, the strength of our system, of our democracy, is that it is people-powered, that people choose their elected leaders. They choose their governors, their state reps, their senators. Well, he wants to take away that choice. Here's the thing. I'm going to be a governor for all 13 million Pennsylvanians, whether you agree with me or not, whether you voted for me or not. We need a governor who's not going to inject chaos in his own personal political viewpoints on everything, but actually a governor who can bring people together and get things done. I'll do that.
Thanks for coming on the show, appearing with us. All right, when we come back, the scammers are after your money. We'll get to that after these words.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by Cross-State Credit Union Association. Credit unions, where people are worth more than money. To find a credit union that is right for you, go to ibelong.org. And by the Energy Association of Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania's energy information source. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Association of Pennsylvania State College and University Faculties, representing the faculty and coaches who are devoted to providing quality public higher education for Pennsylvania's college students.
Well, the scammers are after your money. Joining me is Brian Roche, anchor and consumer investigator with WGAL News 8. All right, Brian, you've been on the program many times talking about how they want your money, right? That's the scammers just want your money.
That's what keeps me in business, Terry.
There you go. Well, let's start with a couple. We're going to do 3 or 4 of them. Let's start with the Zelle scams, peer-to-peer payments. Zelle, what's that?
A lot of people don't know what that is, and that's why this scam works as well as it has been. Zelle payments, and there's a couple others named cash payment apps. It's basically a way of transferring money from one person to another. You and I go play golf, and you beat me like you always do, and I have to owe you money. I give you cash. But these payment apps, I just get on my phone, punch a couple of buttons, and boom, the money goes to you. The way this scam works is that the scammers are sending out text messages to people who, again, are not familiar with the way this works, but the text message basically says, you've lost money through Zelle. Money has been taken out of your account and it's been sent somewhere else. Contact us for help. And I'm really simplifying this scam. So when you call them, the person acts as if they're with your bank. They pretend they're trying to help you. And this scam actually takes about an hour and a half to go through entirely. They pretend they're helping you. They pretend they're helping you move your money back into your account, but actually the money is going to their account somewhere else. It is very elaborate, and again, it takes advantage of the fact that a lot of people, they know these peer-to-peer payment apps exist, but they don't know how they work. All they read is a text message that says, my money is gone,
but a bank
I want it back.
wouldn't notify you that way, would it?
A bank would notify you if you had signed up for text alerts from them. So that's how you would find out about it. Here's the way you avoid this scam. If you're not certain what Zelle is and you get this text, don't deal with the text. Don't respond to the text. Contact your bank directly. Yeah. Go to the branch office or look up the phone number for your bank and say, what is going on here? And most of the time, your bank will be able to tell you your money's perfectly fine.
How common is this scam?
It is becoming more common, especially in the last 6 months as these apps become more popular.
Right.
They're very popular with younger consumers. And again, as I said, older consumers know they exist, but they really don't know how they work. So that's who the scammer's really after, the older consumer who doesn't have deep knowledge of this.
All right, let's go to another one. SIM, S-I-M, cards. SIM cards, and you call it swapping, whatever that means.
This is a dangerous scam, and I did my first story on this about a year ago with a man who lost, he was actually in California. He agreed to talk to me here in Pennsylvania, but he lost over $20 million to this. $20 million, because when you stop and you think about your phone, What do you have in here? Almost your entire life is in this phone these days with the apps you have and the bank payment systems, the whole 9 yards. In the side of the phone is what's called the SIM card. It's the brain of the phone. It's about the size of your fingernail, your little fingernail. We pop those things out, and it takes the brain out of your cell phone. So this is also a very elaborate scam, but the simplest explanation is the scammers contact your cell phone company pretending to be you, and they swap out the SIM card. And again, once they swap out that SIM card, they get access to everything that you have in your phone. And again, stop and think about what's in there.
Wow.
Your bank account information, all your passwords, basically your entire life. This may be your new social security card. And once they get access to that, they can get to your bank accounts. And this individual we did the story with, he claims he lost over $20 million. So if someone's trying to take over your phone, if you find out your phone's not working, just like we talked about with the Zelle scam, contact your cell phone company directly.
Same question I asked you earlier. How common?
This one is not that common, but again, the stories that I'm reading about this around the country, when people are victimized by this, they lose a lot of money. We're talking hundreds, sometimes millions of dollars, depending upon their personal financial worth. And I should add that these scammers know who they're going after. They go after the people who they know are wealthy and have a lot of financial resources.
Wow. All right, coming up, you won't believe this. It's called romance scams. We'll get to that after these words.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Pennsylvania Medical Society. Inspired physicians committed to the good health of Pennsylvanians and the advancement of the practice of medicine.
All right, I'm chatting with Brian Roche, anchor Consumer Investigator with WGAL News 8. We're talking about, as I like to put it, the scammers are after your money. All right, Brian, this is something, I think we mentioned some aspect of this earlier when you were on in another program. Romance scams. What is that all about?
You're right. We have talked about it before, and we're going to talk about it again because it continues to become a huge problem. In fact, I can hit you with some statistics. Last year, in 2021, the Federal Trade Commission said the amount of fraud in romance scams doubled from the year before. Doubled. Now, what was reported to the Federal Trade Commission was half a billion dollars of losses. And I think I've told you this before. Most scam victims don't report their losses because they're embarrassed.
They're embarrassed?
So that $500 million figure may be very, very conservative. It's probably well into the billions. But these romance scams capitalize on people who are lonely, most of the time older people who are sitting at home. They've lost a loved one, they've lost their husband or their wife, and they're looking for companionship, and they find it online. And online, these scammers prey and pose as very attractive people with a lot of money. And on the internet, if you have the right picture and you type the right words, you can be anyone you want to be.
Yeah.
You can pretend to be anyone you want. I've heard of cases where women are online posing as men trying to scam other women. But these romance scams, Terry, they're sad. They're really, really sad. I had a woman who was brave enough recently in York County, Pennsylvania. She went on the air with me and told me her story of losing almost $300,000, her personal life savings, to a romance scammer, a guy who was posing as an airline pilot and a civil engineer in Europe.
So they ask you for money. Is that
what they do is they ask you for money to help finance some kind of an investment, or they say they've had some kind of a travel problem and they need money to buy a plane ticket. They come up with all of these sob stories, but all along telling the victim, I love you so much, you mean so much to me, I feel like we have a great future. And the lonely individuals who, again, have gone through a tremendous loss, they are very susceptible and they fall for this thing and they give away a lot of money. This woman I was talking about who lost $300,000, she said to me, I've lost my retirement. I have to work now, unfortunately, until I pass away. She has no source of income now, and she gave it all away. So if someone's contacting you and trying to pose as someone, but they don't want to speak to you on the phone or through FaceTime, that's a big, big sign that you're dealing with a scammer. They want to live behind that persona that they have created online with the fancy picture and the person
You'd at
who's
least
in love with them.
expect them to, the other person to say who's being scammed, come over, let's go have dinner, or let's go have lunch or something.
Exactly, but
wouldn't
they
you?
always have an excuse for the reason why they can't do that.
Oh, my.
So.
All right, I have to ask you before the end of the show, text, T-E-X-T, text scams. We all text, don't we?
We all text, and I'm sure you've gotten these on your phone. If you own a phone, you're getting these things. And I know, again, you and I have talked about this, but text scams are taking over robocalls as the #1 way to approach consumers and try to scam them. The Federal Trade Commission just announced in August of this year that it believes that this year text scams are going to outnumber phone scams. And why? Why do they work so well? Well, with a phone call, you can easily ignore it. You just don't answer the phone. You don't recognize the number, you don't answer the phone. But the text scam, when it comes into your phone, it's right there in front of you. You read it and you see it, and you're being told that, oh, there's a package being delivered to you, or you've lost money from your bank account.
Oh, I've gotten them.
Exactly. We've all gotten them. So people click on these things, and you never know what those links in those text messages are going to do. They could open up your entire system for malware. They could expose you to giving up personal information. Text messages are very, very dangerous, and they're easy to do. They take up less time for the scammer to send the text message to you than it does to call you. To call you is probably a 2 to 3 minute procedure, but to send that text message, it's type it, boom, send it, and they get to you, and it's like putting bait on a hook for a fish, and there's the bait right in front of you.
Yeah, we have a couple minutes left. So it's obvious that these are growing. Does the government play any role in stopping these? Or did you tell me one time that a lot of them are coming from overseas and they're electronic, they're online?
Yes, a lot of them are coming from overseas, but a growing number of them are coming from within the United States. And these scams, Terry, they're all computer-based. If I had a laptop computer sitting right here in front of me, I could make scam phone calls just by pushing a few buttons. I could tell my computer to pick out an area code in Pennsylvania, and today, in that area code, this computer is going to call every potential number that's in that area code and send them the message that they've got a problem with the package or there's a problem with their bank. The same thing applies with text messages. They can sit there in front of a computer, they could sit at a coffee shop with a laptop and run these scams right off that laptop if they have the right software. They type into the software, send out this text message to all the people who are in area code 215.
Right.
Send them this message, and they hope people will respond to it. The technology the scammers have boggles your mind. But it's all computer-based. There's nothing elaborate and sexy about it. And people think there's a whole room full of scammers sitting somewhere. It's that simple. It's someone sitting behind a laptop computer, pushing a few buttons, running a scam.
Well, look, I want to thank you for coming on and explaining this. This is it's complicated, but it's much more simple when you get to the average person dealing with them. All right, we'll see you next week for another edition of Pennsylvania Newsmakers, and as always, you stay well.